শুভ সন্ধ্যা বৈশাখ টেলিভিশনের আজকের একটা বিশেষ অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাদের সকলকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাই। Welcome to Boishakhi Television. Tonight we have an unusual program celebrating 40 years of our freedom, 40 years of our victory, 40 years of the Liberation War. The program is called Celebrating Freedom and Friendship. 40 বছর আগে, in the midst of very difficult global political scenario, on 4th February 1972, three very important countries of Europe, the Western Europe, Denmark, Norway and Sweden recognized Bangladesh. It was only 2 months that we have become independent, and these 3 countries have the privilege to have the honor role of the first 23 countries that recognized Bangladesh. Today, it's my honor to present the ambassadors of those 3 countries. I have here in the studio with us Ambassador Anneli Lindell Kenny of Sweden, Ambassador Svend Olling of Denmark.
That's me.
And Ambassador Ragne Bertelund of Royal Norwegian Embassy. Ladies and gentlemen, as early as 1972, when they recognized our country, Bangladesh was devastated due to death and destruction left behind by Pakistan military. In the backdrop of that, and 40 years later, today, we would like to hear from each one of you how you rate Bangladesh, where we stand from where we were 40 years ago.
Yes, well, considering the extremely difficult situation 40 years ago, I think Bangladesh is an incredible success story. There are so many good things that have happened when it comes to life expectancy. I think it's increased by 20 years in these 40 years. So considering, all the death, the lack of competence, the human suffering 40 years ago, there have really been an incredible progress, and it's because of the people of Bangladesh and their resilience. And that is something I think the whole world admires.
I would agree completely, and I think we need to start telling that story. In any country in the world, including Bangladesh, including all of our 3 countries, there are problems, there are things we want to do better. But look at the progress in Bangladesh from an absolutely impossible outset 40 years ago, with no central structure. Independence came as a surprise even. No money to build with, and then hit by natural disaster and famine even. People would have said at that time, it's a recipe for a failed state. But look at Bangladesh today. Stable growth, real progress on human indicators, and a very realistic scenario for becoming a middle income country. So I think as your title says from this program, it's about celebrating freedom and friendship and the progress already made. And let's start telling the positive story. Instead of focusing on all the negative stuff, let's start telling the story about all the achievements.
I couldn't agree more. And I would say that today Bangladesh is really a frontier for opportunities for Bangladesh itself and for countries in the region, and for us, you said, from the Western Europe and northern part of Europe. Indeed, Bangladesh has traveled far, and I think we have maybe contributed in some way to the achievements of Bangladesh in terms of poverty reduction. There have been a number of changes in its economy, and there is a road ahead. The road is never simple, but I think with you in the lead, we will see in the next few years Bangladesh changing even more. It's in a very dynamic region. It's still in a major poverty belt of the world, but it's in a dynamic region, and we really hope that Bangladesh will be able to pick these opportunities. There are many windows of opportunities now.
Yes, from the very beginning, onward, 72 onward, all of your countries came forward as partners in our development and reconstruction back in 72, when so much was evil and so much destruction was in this place. One would as I mean, you know, like if you remember Henry Kissinger saying it's a basket case.
Yes, yes.
And we have moved
more.
forward, and each one of you have contributed a lot in our development and reconstruction and where we stand. We would really, I think our viewers would like to hear from each one of you, what are the roles that you played in certain places and particular areas that you would be proud of, how you started on that and where it has evolved into?
Maybe I can start,
Yes,
because sometimes one thinks one is visionary and one works on the basis of what is reality at the moment.
Right.
I maybe could have one story to tell you on this, because we came in early and Bangladesh lacked a lot of infrastructure. One thing that Norway supported was to strengthen the communications, railways, and not only that, it was one introduced a fiber optic cable along the railroads, so that there could be communication between the stations. Now, at that time, I don't think one envisaged that it could go beyond also the possibility of helping to electrify the countryside and maybe the regular telephone net. But it in fact became what NORAD, the Norwegian Development Agency, did at the time, became the starting point for the whole mobile telephone net in Bangladesh, that where Telenor engaged and GP, the Grameenphone, has then contributed to a massive change in Bangladesh. I think that's something we couldn't know at that time, what were the magnitudes of that.
Right. I would say the entrepreneurship of the Bengalis have really evolved that, taken that opportunity to move us forward. Wouldn't you agree with that, Ambassador Svend?
Absolutely, because we have to recognize also that maybe our three countries put forward some kind of help or something that's needed strategically in the country, but it's the Bangladeshi people who take advantage and use those opportunities. We really have to recognize that. So my little story, to answer your question of what's impressive, symbolic, a story I'd like to tell, is perhaps not in volume very big, but it just shows you the turnaround in Bangladesh and makes you optimistic about the future. And that's about something which Bangladesh and my country, Denmark, use both, which is ferry boats. We're surrounded by water and we need ferry boats. And I remember, I was just a very young boy in the 1970s, but I remember in school my teacher telling us in the class about what was happening in this country far away called Bangladesh. And I remember specifically the teachers telling us that we needed to help, we needed to show solidarity, and we needed to help and send ferry boats because the people of Bangladesh needed to be able to move around their country. So we did. Denmark donated ferry boats for the rivers of Bangladesh. Now, 40 years later, things have turned around completely. Just last week, I was down at the Western Marine in Chittagong, looking at one of their latest projects, which is building a passenger ferry for Denmark. So we've come from Denmark donating ferry boats to a state-of-the-art shipyard in Bangladesh producing something as complicated with as high safety standards as a passenger ferry for export. That shows you, I think, in a symbolic way how far Bangladesh has come.
Very nice story.
Oh, yeah. And also it's for a cold water boat. I believe they are more difficult to build.
Yes, and the safety standards are high. And it costs to rise. That's not needed in Bangladesh, I think.
Yes, Ambassador Ken.
Yeah, we have some of the areas we've been involved in is education and health. We still are, and we were from the very beginning. And so one of the sort of success stories, I would say, is family planning. And now we have very strong support to sexual reproductive health. Obviously also women's issues is something that's very close to our heart. So we are, and here I would like to really commend the current government for being very forward-looking when it comes to women's rights. I mean, there's a lot of things happening with the new women's policy and so forth. So in health, that is one thing, but also in education. I think we were actually present here even before independence in vocational training, and we also had some infrastructure projects in various parts of the country. But that then moved into primary education, and there one of our focus was to try to really sort of advocate that girls should go to school, to sort of take away the impediments for girls going to school. And I think that that is not so successful, not because of us, but also because of the government and all the other partners, that there are more girls starting school than boys. So maybe now we should concentrate on the boys.
Right.
But also, can I also say that we have also worked with civil society, and that is one major asset in this country. I think the strong civil society organizations like Grameen Bank, like BRAC, and so forth.
And what the ambassador said on education, and also what the government has done in terms of women's empowerment, I would say that the fact that the Nordic countries have also supported the civil society, and we see how the government and civil society works together when it comes to women's empowerment. And I think that's something that could be taken on more broadly in society as well. And I feel in a way proud when I see the Bangladeshi women leaders who from civil society who are pushing and at the same time achieving something. They are the change makers, and at the same time they are the beneficiaries. And this is unique. It's a part of the success story here.
And also when it comes to business with our garment buyers here, all Swedish big companies like H&M and they're all present here, and I think that has also been something very good for women in this country, that they're providing job opportunities in the ready garment sector. And I believe that the way the Nordic countries work with corporate social responsibility, with workers' rights and so forth, that this is something that is we are happy to be part of that, which is also good development in this country.
Well, I agree completely. And there are many things, fortunately, we can tell about success stories, about 40 years of engagement from our three countries. But I also see things changing a little bit if we look ahead on the way we will be cooperating. You just mentioned, of course, that on the commercial side, things are growing, exploding even fast and in much stronger ties. But if you see the kind of development assistance we've been doing, in the beginning, of course, obviously, it was about disaster relief. It was about handling natural disasters. It was about this immediate thing, and also in the social sectors to be doing that. We still, of course, are engaged in the social sectors. But looking ahead, when I'm asked by my capital, Copenhagen, what should we be doing for the next 10 years in development aid? We look more towards what can we do to underpin the strong forces that are here for growth? What can we do with the private sector? What can we do with the institution building? What can we do to strengthen democracy? These types of things, because the sustainable strong growth is here. That's no longer what it's about, and it's lifting millions of people out of poverty. And I have to admit that for us, the agenda is also about, we see a market here. We see a new middle class that's of a huge country with many, many people, and we want to, when the middle class is strong economically, to also come here to sell our goods. That's also on the agenda for us. But I hope that is also a positive agenda for Bangladesh.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, because if we are the market, same way you are a market for us. So as you try to sell your products and the industries are built, and we would definitely improve ourselves to also sell our products in your countries.
I can share with you that the Bangladeshi export to Norway increased tremendously last year, and it's quite high. It's more than 1 billion Norwegian kroner. And what Ambassador of Denmark just said also,